human advantage. Do we still need artificial intelligence? It's kind of an interesting thought to think about at a tech conference. But I think that there are some fundamental skills that we have as humans that are unique and that are important, and that it's important to help those grow. Because we live in a time where we can accomplish more in less time than ever before. But also what that means is it's a double-edged sword, because we're also expected to accomplish more now than at any other time in human history. Both of those things are true because of the advancements of technology. The three skills that I want to focus on in this presentation are our art of problem solving, productivity, and creativity. You see, these are three skills that have taken our species hundreds of thousands of years to perfect and develop, and over the course of just a few decades, technology has done a pretty good job at starting to slowly strip away from us. So we have a big dependency on technology, and a lot of us in the room maybe have had that rear its head in a number of different ways, whether we're depending on a clicker to work, or depending on our alarms to wake us up, or our calendars to remind us when the next event is that we need to be at. I'll share a story from my beginnings of teaching. It was a while ago. I just got over the first year hump of my teaching degree, and I was feeling pretty confident in my skills. You know, I had a whole year of perfecting my lesson plans. I had a full year of understanding how my classroom technology worked. And so when I got into class that day, I just did what every expert teacher does when the bell rings. I just started teaching. I got my kids working on some bell work, and I was talking, building relationships, and I reached for the remote for my projector to power it on. And this is what I saw. Replace the lamp now. Not in like 5 minutes, or not down the road sometime, or not, hey, you should really schedule an appointment to get that bulb replaced. But it was now, and the emphasis was placed even harder when this happened. The screen goes blank. My heart sinks. My palms are sweaty, knees weak, arms are heavy. It was a little early in the morning to have had any of my mom's spaghetti. But in all seriousness, I had no idea what I was supposed to do. Teacher school didn't prepare me for this. The projector is just supposed to work. What about my slides? What about the really cool illustration of the carbon cycle I was going to share? What about the video that was going to connect it all and really drive the point home? You know, I wish that the story had a better ending, but there I was staring at my students. They looked at me. It was a standoff. And I remember feeling like you hear that students can smell fear. If that was true, my classroom would have an aura you could smell at the front office. I wish that something cool happened, like I suddenly remembered some neat tricks that I had up my sleeve, and I adjusted my teaching so that it was cool. Or better yet, what if all of a sudden the custodian comes in like a flannel and denim angel, ready to replace the bulb, and everything was back as it should be? That didn't happen. No, instead I stood there awkwardly, fumbling through the rest of my lessons, pretending the whole time that my students couldn't tell that I was about to crumble at any given moment. You see, we build a dependence on technology, and we live in a digital world, and that could be good and that could be bad. And because of our dependence on technology and how ingrained things like digital clocks and reminders are, I was actually a little bit surprised as a teacher when my children, my own human children that I helped to keep alive, came home from school with a worksheet that had this on it, an analog clock. And I feel a little bit bad, and I'm sorry for any elementary school teachers that are listening, but I thought, oh, that's cute. I wonder how long teachers are going to hold on to that one. You know, thinking that, like, digital is better. Why do we need analog clocks? But the reality is, as usual, I find myself being humbled by other people as I learn more. I love learning more. And I was spending some time, as many of us do, on LinkedIn, looking through different posts and comments about AI and why are we still teaching essay writing when AI does it so well. In fact, there was a post made about that topic from one of my good friends, Paul Matthews. And he was talking about this, but it was not his post, but the comments that followed that really got me thinking about why we're teaching kids about analog clocks. So it was from Brian Shore, and what he said is, shall we consider the importance of teaching analog clocks? There I am, put in my place. He talks about things like conceptual understanding of mathematics and number systems, fractions. He talks about real-world applications and why it's so important, because we revolve around time. He finishes by saying this: essentially, teaching analog clocks provides valuable mathematical and cognitive benefits that extend beyond simply telling time. So the first skill that I want to focus on is problem solving. Problem solving is a skill that we have developed over hundreds of thousands of years, and I'll tell a story. About 300,000 years ago, a new species — I teach biology and anatomy, by the way, that'll make sense in a little while. A new species came on the scene in Central Africa about 300,000 years ago. A particularly clever primate species that has since become one of the most dominant organisms on planet Earth, and maybe the most powerful. That is Homo sapiens. Us, by the way. And Homo sapiens, how did we get here is the real question. How did we become the people that put on big shows, have really cool technology, and solve world problems? Well, the short answer is that global catastrophe and rapidly changing climate kind of put evolution into overdrive. And the only way that our species was going to be able to survive was if we were good at problem solving. So we developed tools to help us accomplish tasks. We found ways to create shelter, and we found opportunities to work with other humans to solve problems, to hunt, to find food, to do all of these things over the course of many hundreds of thousands of years. And the result is that our adaptation, our best adaptation, it isn't our strength or our might, but it's our brain. See, humans have the biggest brain when compared to our body size than any other animal that exists on planet Earth. And here's a chart to show. Well, almost every animal on planet. The marmoset apparently does have a bigger brain compared to its body than we do. So I guess when we're talking about an uprising, it's not the AI uprising, it's the marmoset. So get ready. But the reality is, though, that problem solving in our brains are our most wonderful adaptation. We don't have claws, we don't have sharp teeth, we don't have fur, and compared to other animals that are the same size as us, we're not even that strong. And so problem solving is really our thing. It's what we've done for hundreds of thousands of years. And as we walk around the vendor hall and as we're looking at all these tech solutions, they're all offering to solve a problem for you. Some might say, well, solve the problem you didn't know you had. But is that really where we're going? My invitation isn't to talk about how crazy scary AI will be or that technology is going to take our jobs. I use AI every day. I use technology every day, and I love the life that I have because of those things. But problem solving is important, and if we depend on those tools, we can sometimes lose our ability to problem solve, which is important because in our industry, education, we work with some of the most unpredictable, critical, yet imaginative clients there are on this wild planet, and that is children, human children aged 5 to 18. You never know what's going to come through your door. Have they had their snack yet? Do they need to play outside? Have they already played outside? Did they just get their heart broken? Or did they just fall in love? All of these things change from day to day. So being adaptable and teaching dynamically rather than statically is really the only option that we have. And so when we think about problem solving and we develop our skills of problem solving, that's what helps us to meet the diverse needs of our students. I'll give you another example. As an anatomy teacher, we do our fair share of dissections. Has anybody done a dissection? Do you remember which dissection? The frog. It's a classic one. In anatomy, a classic dissection is the cow eye. Relatively simple. It's a cow eye. How hard could it be? But I've found that if students put too much pressure on the cow eye and have just the wrong angle of attack with the scalpel, the result is interesting. A jet of aqueous humor can shoot across the room, splatter on the face of the cheerleader at the next lab station, and that's a problem that not even the most adept AI teaching companion can help you solve. That's something you have to know how to do all on your own. Now, well, there are tech tools that will say that they offer a easy button. If we rely on just pushing the button that makes things go fast for us automatically, we lose an opportunity to solve problems all on our own. One of the things that I was reminded of recently, I was talking to, his name is Ben Whitaker. He's called The Ideas Guy. He writes a book about it. We talked about identifying problems, and he reminded me of this Abraham Lincoln quote. And it is about sharpening our axe. When given 6 hours to chop down a tree, Abraham Lincoln reported that he would spend 4 of those hours sharpening his axe, and then the remaining 2 hours to chop down the tree, which seems like a pretty great use of time. Rather than using many, many different tools or a lot of effort to cut the tree down, he puts the effort where the effort matters the most. And in our line of work, that effort comes in understanding our students and knowing our content and understanding how we can help them, our students that is, to reach higher heights. This has been The Ideas Guy. He also wrote a book recently that you should check out called The Ideas Guy. And on the podcast that I run called Think Like a Teacher, I asked him, like, well, Ben, you're the ideas guy. How do we get better ideas? And his answer was a little surprising. It was, just have more of them. Have more ideas, and you're more likely to get better ideas. So when we think about artificial intelligence, when we think about technology, if we understand the problem, if we understand really what we're trying to accomplish in our role as an educator, as a coach, as a leader, then we can use artificial intelligence to just amplify the number of ideas that we could get to solve that problem. It's not us relying on technology, but using it in its intended use to help us reach farther than we could just on our own. Okay, the next skill that I want to focus on is productivity. This is one that many might argue, like, well, is technology really making us less productive? And I think that in some ways it really is. As educators, we are no stranger to the idea of burnout. Burnout is a real thing. And that's why when I came across this book, Slow Productivity by Cal Newport, The Lost Art of Accomplishment, look at that, without burnout, I was very interested because, yeah, I get burnout. It's real. How do I get stuff done without also feeling like I'm a zombie by the time I get home? Well, he breaks it down into really 3 simple things. The first is to do less. The second is to work at a natural pace. And then following that is to obsess over the quality of the things that we do. Now, we might think that doing less is kind of impossible as teachers. We have so many things to do, and I'll touch on that in a minute. Working at a natural pace is putting boundaries on the things that we do, and we can just obsess over the quality of our work. Other things that I like to do, I like to watch a lot of TED Talks and presentations about this topic, about time and how we use it and how we can be better at using it. And Rory Sutherland is another person that I've listened to, and he gave a presentation about time, this concept of time, and how do we spend our time, and can we save time, and what really is it all about? He makes a case about the Transcontinental Railroad. So prior to the railroad's completion, it took about 2 weeks to go from New York to San Francisco. When the railroad was completed, that cut the time down to 2.5 days, which means all of the people that have business in New York and San Francisco, they're thinking, well, I can just take my time. I could see the sights. I could spend more time with my family, maybe get in a round of golf. All of the things I could do with my leisure time. However, as you would expect, word got out about the train, and it was now expected that you showed up in California 2.5 days later, rather than 2 weeks later. So what once was an option now became an obligation to take the train. So did we really save time? Or did we just fill it up with more things that maybe don't matter all the way? And so what this helps me to kind of think about and see is that in a world dominated by technology, we find that faster is not always the same as better. Even though many people, studies show, live a little bit farther away from their workplace than is optimal. Are there any people that have a morning commute, like commute to work more than 10 minutes? There's a few of us. I'm one of those people. And at first, when I moved far away from work, I thought, oh, gee, this is going to be the worst. I have to drive 30 minutes to work. But as I embraced that drive, I found that it was helpful to have a buffer between what I'm doing professionally and what I'm doing personally. It helped me to be able to show up better on both ends of my commute. But still, technology like GPS is always optimized for the fastest route. If the fastest route isn't what people really, really want, why are we still doing this? It's part of our culture that hopefully we can start to step away from as we practice slow productivity by doing less. In teacher world, what does that mean? You can't really always take things off of your plate, as many of us know. There are lots and lots of things that we have to do and have to get done. But if we organize them in a way where we're doing less at a time, well, then maybe we can start to unlock some of the benefits of slow productivity. Take email, for example. Many of us probably check our email constantly. Check it in the morning, check it 10 minutes later, maybe somebody replied to the thing that I said. Oh no, there's a parent, I need to reply right away. All of these things. But if we focus the time in which we give ourselves to check our email, maybe just do it 3 times a day, in the morning, in the middle of the day, and before you go home. What happens is that you will train yourself to address the things that are important when they're important, and other things that can take a back seat will. Similarly with your prep period, what are you doing with that time? Are you trying to do many, many things at once? Or could you shorten that and just do one thing at a time? If we work at a natural pace, what does this look like for us? Well, I think of just leaving my computer on my desk, and at the end of the day, just going home. Because we've been hardwired as a human species to get it done in the time we give ourselves to get it done. It might seem scary to leave your computer at home. It might seem like a stretch to say, I'm not going to grade all of this stuff at home. I'm going to leave it in the turn-in basket, and I'm going to do it at work when I'm at work. But I am convinced, after practicing this for a while, that it does work, that you do find time within the boundaries that you set for yourself to accomplish all of the things that you need to do. And then when you're doing those fewer things, when you're just paring it down, doing one thing at a time, you're working at a natural pace within boundaries that you can set for yourself, and you just obsess over the quality of that one thing. And what I feel like you will find is that you'll get more done in the amount of time that you would have given yourself had you tried to jump around and do many, many things all at once. Other ways that I think about saving time is technology. There are a couple of vendors here that I want to talk about. So one of them is Instructure. We use Canvas all the time, daily. I don't really remember when we started using Canvas. It was like 2020, I think, for some reason. But now we use it, and it was exciting, and we could grade papers, we could have it grade quizzes automatically. All of these things were done for us, and I thought, gee whiz, look at all the time I'm going to save. The other one is School AI. I love School AI. It is one of my favorite technology tools. When it was presented to our district a couple of years ago, I thought, wow, this is going to save me so much time. So much time will be saved. What have I done with the time I've saved? It's gone. I still feel stressed. I still feel overworked. I still feel like I have 1.5 million things to do. So do they really save me time? Or do they just force me to do more things than I need to do at a time? Because really, you can't save it. Time is one of those things that when it runs out, it runs out. At the end of the day, you can't rewind. When it's getting close to the end, you certainly can't pause time. It just runs out. So the solution, I think, to help us to be more productive is to practice slow productivity. Tortoise, hare kind of situation. But technology can be incredibly useful for productivity. We can use technology to help us automate tasks, to categorize emails, to help us synthesize data sets, to help us to increase our workflow in how we're teaching our lessons. So there's lots and lots of ways that we can use technology, but if, again, we're focusing on just using the technology to do it for us, I think that's when we kind of get into a bit of a pickle. All right, the last and final skill that I think is the most important skill for humans to develop and to practice is creativity. Creativity, and this one I don't think that many can argue with, that artificial intelligence can do a fairly good job at imitating human creativity. And I am friends with a lot of artists and photographers, videographers that share their concern about generative AI doing their job for them. But humans have always shown that we are creative with some unfathomable inventions, like the printing press, the internet, vaccines, even artificial intelligence is a great example of our own human creativity. But there's one that I think is just at the top. The invention of all time that exemplifies everything that I've been talking about to this point in this presentation, and that is the Pop-Tart. The humble, shelf-stable pastry that comes in a box the same shape of the thing itself. Now, I hear some of you chuckle. I'm not the first one to think of the Pop-Tart as one of the greatest inventions of all time. No, that came from Jerry Seinfeld. Many Seinfeld fans, for a good reason. He's incredibly gifted. He even took the Pop-Tart joke that he delivers in his stand-up comedy routine and turned it into a full-length feature film called Unfrosted, showing the battle, the arms race for the shelf-stable pastry between Kellogg's and Post cereal companies. He made everything up. It's not even a real story. He didn't even ask permission from Kellogg's. He just did it because he's Jerry Seinfeld. But the thing that I bring this up about is because if you watch interviews with Jerry or read articles about the Pop-Tart joke, he will openly say that it took him 2 years to develop that joke. 2 years of changing words, commas, pauses, until it became the thing that is the Pop-Tart joke. If you haven't watched it, definitely after this, YouTube it. But what his purpose was is really slow productivity. He has an interesting perspective about being creative, and he says that our brains hate to be bored. So, if you lock yourself in a room where the only thing is to be bored, your brain will do whatever it takes to get out of that situation because it hates it so much. Which led me to think, okay, slow productivity, take you 2 years to refine a thing, that's obsessing over quality, and forcing ourselves to be bored. If creativity is so important, how do we find it? How do we replicate it? And so I came up with this. Creativity, I think, can be found consistently and repeatedly at the intersection of our imagination and boredom. So, when we're thinking about how do I become more creative, my kids will ask me all the time, maybe it's not an ask, it's more of like a complaint. Dad, I'm bored. And my reply will be, fantastic. Tell me when it's over. And really, boredom is that thing that helps unlock our imagination. I told them that just the other night, in fact. They said, I'm so bored. I'm like, all right, cool. Let me know when you're done being bored. And I turned around, and I have 4 boys. It's a madhouse at times. But all 4 of them, my wife was out with a friend, all 4 of them were on the floor inchworming in an inchworm race. And they said, Dad, we're not bored anymore. I said, well, no, you certainly are not. Good job. It's creativity. It's something that they wouldn't have thought of to do unless I allowed them to just stay bored for a little while. Technology shouldn't be the thing that we use to just generate images for our slide deck about creativity being a robot thing and humans standing by looking out the window, even though that's exactly what I did. But we can be okay with being bored. Just sit with it. See what happens. And I would argue that if you allow yourself to be bored, you'll probably come up with something incredible that you would have never, ever thought of unless you had. But then once you've understood how to find your creative spark, how to be creative and think outside of the box, that's when we let AI back in the room and use it as a collaborative partner. It's really, really good at taking one thing and expanding it to make it something huge, something different, something unique and fun. But ultimately, it comes down to these three skills: problem solving, productivity, and creativity. They're human skills. They're skills that we've worked on for hundreds of thousands of years to perfect and make awesome. And so why would we take the easy way out and just let technology do that and potentially halt our progress moving forward? So rather than just leaning all in on the tech or ditching it all and leaning all into using an overhead projector or paper handouts, let's find balance. Balance between what we do with our own human skills and what we ask technology to do for us, and to help us use technology to reach a little further than we could on our own. So it's my hope that we can continue to be pioneers. There's a lot of pioneers next door. So many pioneers, their life's work is to get us farther, to solve more problems that teachers do have, real problems that need real solutions, and they do a really good job. But if we can focus on being human first, then I really do believe that we have a great shot at making a world where both things work together, where we can be authentically intelligent and make a brighter future for kids. Because that's why we're here. Thank you.